Sustainability. Nurturing our inner child. What does sustainability have to do with our inner child? Well, if you want to grow away from what may have been painful and move forward into what might bring you lots of joy, you need to nurture your inner child. And maybe you've never thought about that. Maybe you had a perfect childhood and you never think about it. And that's still okay because that child still needs to be nurtured. Not in the same way, not to the same depth. But I noticed today over in the driveway, rock driveway, there's a zinnia plant, a zinnia flower, two blooms, right in the middle of the driveway. Because nobody's been there for a couple of days, so up it popped. And apparently nobody drove over it. And if you stop there for a moment and you look at it, it's like being a child and looking at the wonder of a flower. Special. It's nurturing. But some of us have had a bad childhood. A lot of us have. A lot of us have had one or other things happen. Maybe not even the cause of our parents. Maybe not the cause of our neighbors or our living situation or economics or anything else. But we still are dealing with things. And I know when I'm online and somebody is really having a tough time, we've talked about something and gotten through something that was a real bump in the road. Maybe it was a toxic parent, alcohol, drugs, workaholic, whatever it might be, beating them, criticizing them, putting them down, whatever it was that was hard on the child. And we've talked it through, and they feel some level of resolution and understanding from the other people in the group. And then I reach for my little dragon and I go, hey, what do you think? Did we get there or not? There's never a time that somebody doesn't laugh because we need that. We need to feel like somebody, something cares about us. And that's good for us. There are those who will say that part of moving forward, becoming sustainable, becoming putting ourselves in a position where we can grow and change and take another path and try something really different and outrageous or just goal setting. That sometimes that's easier when we've had a little joy. I know college students will say, oh, let's go have a beer. But that's not exactly the same thing. Yes, it's camaraderie and yes, it can be fun and yes, it can separate you from what's going on. But the inner child thing is a little different than that. Maybe, oh, blowing bubbles. Oh, yeah. Blowing bubbles. Playing with a sparkler. Remember those sparklers that you could spin around? You'd light them up and spin them around. Maybe it was an Etch-a-Sketch. Maybe you liked to play puzzles when you were a kid. Or you had a favorite cat or favorite dog. Maybe there was a bird. You had a bird. Bird used to sit on your shoulder and peck at your face. Whatever it was, it made you feel important, made you feel good about yourself, gave you some joy, comfort, pleasure. And sometimes we forget that there are people in our lives who don't do that. They don't give us joy. They don't give us pleasure. They're confrontive. They're sabotaging. They don't have our backs. And yet, for one reason or another, we continue to be friends with them, see them occasionally. And yet we walk away at the end and go, oh boy, I just don't feel good about that. And that's important to point that out because we need to cut them off. just one of those things you have to do. It's hard. It really is, because there are many of us who really count the importance of friends. How many people said they liked me, or they appreciated what I did, or they say thank you, and you forget that some people don't. They go, why did you do that? What's the matter with you? What are you thinking? Why in the world can't you be like everybody else? Is that really what we need to hear? Is it? No. No, but there are people like that. Some people are really good at gaslighting, especially narcissists, of course, but some people are just really good at stepping on your back to feel better about them, having such low ego strength that the only way they really feel better is when they put you down. And yet they do it in such a subtle way that you think they care about you, and they really don't. So as a part of moving forward in your life and doing the things you want to do and trying the things you haven't tried before and exploring, so, especially something you've thought about for years. I can remember thinking about how I'd love to try water ski sometime. It was just a casual thought. It wasn't a big deal. I just had that in my mind as a thought. I was a good swimmer. Wasn't concerned about that. Wasn't afraid of the water. And so I just thought, gosh, I'd love to water ski. And you know what? When the time came, I jumped at it. Why? Because I thought about it before. Maybe you thought about having a party. Or you thought about New Year's Eve blowing a blower with a wiggly thing that came out of the front of it, out of paper. Maybe you just thought about setting off some fireworks for fun, even if it wasn't a celebration, just for fun, just because you felt like doing it. It also is really, really easy to feel that kind of feeling when you work with children. Maybe you take your kids or your grandkids or your neighbor's kids to the beach and you build a sandcastle, or you watch them build a sandcastle, and you're sitting on the sand with your feet crossed and just being a part of what's going on. That's nurturing your inner child, especially when the kids look at you and they smile and they thank you for bringing them, or whatever. As long as it's positive, wow, it's really good for you. It's very hard to really cut off what you've worked at when you've tried to work at creating a friendship. I'm not talking about a partner or an intimate friendship, but just a normal friendship. And you realize that every time you see that person, you don't feel good about yourself. And so you say to yourself, wow, why am I doing this? Because I have to have another tick on the wall that says I have a friend? We don't need that. We just don't need it. It holds us back. It's hard to grow that way. One of the ways I'd love to think of being childish, childlike. Let's call it childlike more than childish. Childlike is when it rains and there's a spot in the ground and it's really muddy, and I take my shoes off and I wiggle my toes in the mud. Sure, I've got to go in and I've got to wash them off and put my socks and shoes back on, but just that few minutes, I'm just sitting there with my toes in the mud. Or perhaps just walking around the house without your shoes on. Or recognizing that sometimes you just need a few minutes to feel like nobody is telling you what to do. You don't have to respond to anybody else. That's important. It's really important. It's important to feel like you have some power and control over your life. When you were a kid on a bike and you rode away from the house and you were someplace where you felt safe, and maybe you sat down by a river or something somewhere where you felt safe. Maybe you didn't feel safe at home. And that was your special place. That's the place you went when you really felt like you had to feel safe. You couldn't identify it then. That's the part that's so confusing. As we age, we begin to recognize, for instance, we often connect ourselves with partners that treat us the way our parents did, and that may not be the best option. There's somebody in your life who maybe they beat you, maybe they put you down, all the things, whatever it is that your parents did that didn't make you feel safe, didn't make you feel happy. When somebody else does it as an adult, and you realize, at some point, you realize, whoa, that's because I was doing what I remember doing as a child. And it wasn't fun. I didn't enjoy it. And I don't need to do it now. Or sometimes you remember something. I have this bookend that my husband made. And I keep it, not for books, I keep it on my desk. So I can look at the buffalo in the back and the buffalo right here. The little tufts of grass. Because it always reminds me of my grandfather. He was one of the first carpenters to work on the Yellowstone National Park cabins, the first 4 cabins that went up to make Yellowstone National Park a park. And I remember, I never saw him with the buffalo, but I remember everyone talking to me about what he had done. And later when I saw buffaloes, I said, oh, yes, Grandpa. It's like my youngest son, when he saw the shuttle go up, he would always say, there goes Grandpa's space shuttle. Because his grandfather was the last inspector on the shuttle at that time. So he associated the shuttle with his grandfather. And he was big smile on his face and very happy and excited. And that's the way I feel when I look at the buffalo. I look up just beyond my computer on the top of the back of my desk. And there's that buffalo. And nobody else would have any idea why that made me smile, but there's a warmth that comes over me. He always made me feel safe. I only knew him very little. I saw him very little in my life, but it was such a big deal, and it made me feel warm and safe. He was a big man. He was 6'5", and he had huge hands, but they were kind. He was kind. He was very kind to me. I can remember. It's so clear. It's like it was yesterday. I can remember sitting on a high step, going down into the basement of his house, and looking down at him. It was this incredibly tall, strong man, confidently building me a cradle for my dolls, and I was so happy, and I felt so safe. And if it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't have had anything to compare to when I didn't feel safe. I can remember working with a little girl. Well, not a child. I mean, she was a student. She was in high school. But she was maybe 15, 14. But inside, she was a frightened child because there were always gunshots around her house. And she was telling me about sitting one day in a room and grabbing a sibling and holding her close because there were so many gunshots going off in the neighborhood. And it turned out that later, and I don't even remember why it occurred other than the fact that I was working for a nonprofit program that was within the public schools. And I happened to be talking to one of the administrators about my experiences in the classroom, and something came up where I said, well, yeah, so and so told me about having the shots in her neighborhood. And she said, no, that's not possible. I said, well, I don't understand what you mean. Now, the woman speaking to me was a black woman. The child was a black child. And she said, she would never say that to a white lady. I said, well, she did. How else would I know that that's what she told me? She grabbed her sibling and crawled back in the corner away from the windows and waited for the shots to stop. But I was her counselor. It was a counseling program where people would come into the domestic class, like that kind of like what we used to have when we learned cooking and sewing and that sort of thing. Well, now they call it domestic health or something like that, or domestic nutrition or life class or something. Anyway, I was a volunteer for that program, and they were going to cut it out. I said, no, you can't cut it out. I've gotten so close to the children, and I'm sure the other people have too. When we never talk together because we just come in and go right to our child and spend time listening to whatever the child wants to talk about. That's the whole point of us coming. Come once a week and encourage kids and to see what's bothering them or what they're happy about or whatever. She said, I can't believe that would occur. And it did. Otherwise, how would I know? How would I know to tell her and beg her not to cut it out? Because that young lady, for whatever reason, found me safe. It really was special to me. Because I really, really, really enjoy finding ways to help others with whatever it is that's bothering them. And whatever the age they are, whatever age they are. Little kids all the way up to people older than myself, which is very unusual these days. Almost nobody's older than me these days. But that thank you, that acknowledgement that that young girl must have said that to me, made me feel good about what I had done with her as a child. And it made me think about who made me feel safe as a child. That's part of what it's about, helping to understand ourselves, but helping to nurture that child. Because the child's always with us. It's always inside of us. We have the memories, we have the feelings, we have the fear. And something will come up. Maybe we'll be caught in a tornado. And I'll remember being caught in a tornado as a child. Maybe I'm in a boat with my dad, and the boat is swapping around, and we're not sure what's going to end up happening. And I find myself in the same situation as an adult. And I feel the confidence that I had in my father. And that's what helps me get through it. Or I have the fear, if I was in that situation with my mother, that she wouldn't take care of me. And all of those emotions are worthwhile because recognizing what has gone on in our lives and what can help us heal ourselves is so incredibly vital. And oftentimes we need somebody to help us with that. I mean, if you find a therapist who wants to do inner-child work, don't with a step back. Step right in there. They tell you to play with crayons or water paints, finger paints. Oh God, I love finger paints. Or face paints. Oh man. And if to get a request to work in some kind of a summer program where you get to paint the children's faces, do it. It's, for one thing, they have these beautiful, tight skin that's so easy to paint. And they giggle because the brush tickles. And they're always so excited about what you do. With a heart on their face, or a ladybug over here, or an ant on their neck, whatever you do. It's so much fun to take a few minutes out of your life and nurture that child and think about that child. Because everybody's inner child is different, and everybody's inner child needs something. If you have any questions, by the way, down below there's comments. You can send a comment to me. I'll be happy to answer. I'll be happy to look something up, find any research. I love to do research. So if you feel like talking to me, asking me something, telling me something, don't hesitate. And while you're down there, you can see what my nonprofit has done over the years for children. For the last 34 years, we've had water therapy programs and equine therapy programs and all kinds of art therapy programs, and helping with school subjects, all kinds of things we've done that were just so much fun and helped all of us, everyone who participated, heal a little bit each time, our inner child. Nurture our inner child. Thank you.